can see people are coming in. It looks very good.
Okay.
So yeah, very good, very good, very good. Okay, but let's just begin, Gulli. It's good to see you. It's been a while since I saw you the last time. I can actually
Yeah, good to
no,
see you. I haven't.
I
It's
can
been a
actually
couple of
remember
years.
in Stockholm when you played at Fasching. I think it's 2 or 3 years ago.
Oh, okay.
And as always, it's a pleasure to meet you and to hear you play and to talk to you and everything. It's always a pleasure. So thanks for coming on tonight and talk to me. And I know a lot of guys will follow the stream and probably have a bunch of questions, but we'll get back to that. Um, let's see. Yeah, as I have told you many times, I have been a huge fan of your drumming. When I began to play drums many years ago, I played along to all the Mezzoforte albums every day, and I learned a lot from that actually. So thank you for that.
Mhm. My pleasure. Absolutely.
I mean, it was just like a period, and I talked to many of my colleagues that, from 1980 and up to maybe the mid 90s, it was a golden period, you know, with a lot of great albums, a lot of great music, and a lot of just a lot of great things happening. And I like to actually to start this interview by going back before, you know, Mezzoforte started, when you were probably 16 years old or something, and you began to play. And I was listening to one of the early records yesterday. Actually, I had an LP called Catching Up, which was like a compilation, I think, of some of the early stuff. And you must have been very young when you recorded that. Maybe 16 or around that.
Yeah, I was 15 when we started the band.
Yeah.
So we were 15, 16, 17, and it was just a kind of like a two pairs of guys getting together and forming this quartet that later expanded. And so it was really like a teenage thing, and I mean, it was more like the love for music and the love for being able to play as well as we could, but I mean, I couldn't say we were very good, because we were just very, very young, and we were just trying to emulate other musicians, and other bands, and it basically just takes over your whole mindset, and you really want to go for this and just do the best you can under the circumstances. You don't really have a proper equipment, or no gigs, and poor equipment and no contacts, no nothing, but still you just do it. We were hanging in rehearsal rooms and just loving the experience of playing together.
Yeah.
That what sort of fired us up to try to become something, and so it was a struggle, but we didn't care. In the beginning, we got to play short gigs in Reykjavik.
Yeah. How did you prepare yourself for the first recordings? I mean, did you have lessons? How did you practice, and how did you become, so great when you were so young?
Well, I mean, the first couple of albums were, almost like a childhood kind of thing, because we're still trying to figure out who we are and what we're doing as musicians, and we're trying obviously our best to get a hold of this thing, to try and play those songs and play this music as well as we could. So it was very sort of experimental and very immature in many ways, like almost childish in some ways. But we had a backup. We had actually had a record deal and a record company that was supporting this. And but it wasn't until the fourth album the third album, they sent us to London to record.
Okay.
Yeah, so that was a huge experience, being able to go and record in the London studios with some, British session guys and getting everything to sound really good, Yeah. So we learned so much by being there, and to you have to speak English, you have to sort of grow up a bit, because
So
all of a sudden
you came to London when you recorded the third album. Was that your first experience in London?
Yeah. And we were very lucky, and I always say that we were so lucky that we were able to assemble a team of incredible people that helped us, create this music being what it became,
Yeah.
And so our record company management in Iceland, our British producer Jeff Calver, and Chris Cameron, the guy who arranged a lot of the horns and backing vocals, and so these guys really raised the standard. In a way that we were able to sound much better than we expected, So, like when Garden Party was made, well, it's a great song. It's written by Eyþór, a keyboard player. It's a great song, but there's a lot of parts in that, and it's a lot of kind of complex arrangement for like a dance tune, So me and him, we worked on all the basic, the backing rhythm section stuff. Chris Cameron came in, he did the horns and he did the backing vocals. Louis Jardim came in and played some amazing percussion. It sounded good in the mix, and it's, it was like an effort of many different things that created the band's sound. And I would like to say it was big part of the success we had was were all these amazing people we were lucky enough to work with.
Wow, great. So Garden Party was recorded on the album Surprise, Surprise, I think.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Was that album number 4, or was it the 5th album?
Number 4.
Number 4.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. When did you realize that was going to be a turning point, like in the history of Mezzoforte?
Actually, thinking back on it, I think we realized we had something very special when we were just flying back from London to Iceland. Like, we had these mixes on cassette tapes, and we loved how it turned out. We were really excited about it. And then, but actually, no one really wanted to release this music in England. Because our record company offered this music to some of the major labels, and they said we can't do anything with it, and so he released it himself.
Okay.
And sorry?
Why did they turn it down? I mean, the labels.
I don't know. I think they just couldn't see the selling point of it, but then it found its way into the London clubs and the discos. So I always say Mezzoforte is a dance band,
Absolutely.
Because I mean, people dance to, and still do. They still dance to this music.
Yeah, really. So when did you actually move to London? The whole band.
We moved. Yeah, we moved in the spring of 1983,
Oh,
because this is where everything was going on. I mean, there was so much success and television, radio interviews, and our first tour of the United Kingdom was 47 shows in 49 days.
yeah.
You know, and that was tough for young guys like us.
Yeah.
So, but everything was in London, and so we had to be there. At least we felt that we needed to be there. But later we always said, like, we should have moved to Denmark. You know,
Yeah.
because it would have been easier in so many ways. And the Danish are so close to us, and we are close to Denmark, and we feel really at home there.
Yeah.
Some
All
very
right, but
good
you're welcome
people.
any time. You can still move if you want.
Yeah, yeah.
But actually, I was a little bit interested in the years in living in London. And I'm thinking about on the album No Limit. You had
Mm.
Novel McCalla singing a few songs.
Yeah.
I know you were got aware of Novel McCalla through the band Morrison Mullen band.
Yeah.
Can you name a few drummers on the UK scene that made an impression on you during those years?
To be honest, I wasn't really focusing too much on the British music scene, because we were all just, our eyes were on America. We
Yeah.
were all in Earth, Wind and Fire, Weather Report, George Benson, George Duke. We were all there, monitoring those people. So
Yeah.
I wasn't paying too much attention to the British scene, but I got to know quite a few of them later.
Oh yeah.
So lots of great players
Yeah.
in England, definitely.
Absolutely. Great. Um, so Daybreak, the album Daybreak. I mean, be before we get to that, can you talk a little about um, uh, the album you recorded in LA? Um, I forgot the name of it.
Playing for Time.
Yeah, Playing for
Playing for
Time,
Time.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
How was it doing that album?
Well, Playing for Time came after Daybreak. No,
No.
that is wrong. It came before Daybreak. Sorry. The Playing for Time album was heavily produced. A record that was done. It took like a whole year to make that, and it was in the days of MIDI and electronic drums and programming and some big snare drum sounds and stuff like that. So, and that was big part of it was done in Iceland in our own studio. And we worked with a couple of Norwegian guys, Rolf Graf and Sven Dag Hauge, who produced 2 or 3 songs on that album. Then fast forward, we got a guy from LA, Eric Persing, who was like, had been working for Roland, and he was like this genius with synthesizers and programming stuff. And so he came over to Iceland, and he worked with us on this record for a few weeks, and then we all went to LA around Christmas time, December of 1987 or 88.
Yeah.
And because our dream was always to be in LA, because this is where all the guys were from. This is where all the greatest players in the world were gathered together. So we were able to use and get some of those people to work with us.
Yeah.
And to be honest, again, when you surround yourself with some incredibly talented people, some amazing people, like whether they are arrangers or percussionists or horn players or producers, magic happens.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
and this is what we were looking for in LA, to really try to take things into new heights,
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
and we wanted to make an American album, so to speak, in
Yep.
many ways. And so it turned out to be a nice album, although some of these sounds are maybe a little bit dated by now, but it's still a great album.
It's a very great album. And I remember Ernie Watts is playing saxophone on some of the tracks.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
saxophone player. And again, I just keep thinking by that time you actually do know that it's very important who you team up with, in order to make a successful album. So how do you pick the guys you want to work with, and do you sometimes try out different guys, or let's say you're looking for a great percussion player,
Yeah.
or how does that work?
Well, I mean, I think from our time in London, we got used to the idea of getting like session guys in, like horn players and percussionists, and soloists, saxophone uh, players, and so we got used to that. So I mean, when the time came to try to find some guys in LA, that we were just thinking about who can we get that's really amazing.
Yeah.
Uh, you know, Jerry Hay and the Seawind Horns that recorded the Michael Jackson stuff and the Quincy Jones stuff. They played on a couple of our albums, Paulinho da Costa and then Ernie Watts.
Yeah.
Those were our heroes. So it was a big thing for us to be able to be close to those people in the studio and get them to play on our stuff.
Yeah.
But as I said, surround yourself with some brilliant people, and
Yeah.
magic happens.
That's
Whether
fantastic.
it's just one, if you're, because a lot of my students over the years, they kind of just home alone, drumming away,
Yeah.
and I really have no big experience in playing with people. So I always said, like, find just one guy to play with, a guitar player or a keyboard player or even a singer,
Mhm.
and see how that goes, and just play together with someone. You find a few friends to have a jam on weekends or whatever have you. So
Exactly.
just don't spend too much time alone, playing alone, because it's a lonely place. It's a
Yeah.
lonely place. And you want it, and with the band, with our band, it's really the strength of the people.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
was the four of us, and it was everybody around us, all these amazing musicians who have come and put their touch on the music, solos or arrangements or mixing or sound or mastering.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's always a team, so create your team,
Exactly. Yeah.
make a great team, and magic happens.
Right. 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 I can see we have a few questions coming in, but before I stick to the questions, I have just a specific question to you. Um, on the album No Limit, there's a yeah, legendary drum solo on E.G. Blues.
Hmm.
Did you compose that drum solo, or how did you come up with it? Because it's a really great solo, and it's I mean it's just it's the masterpiece, I think.
Thank you.
But
Thank you.
did you?
I haven't really talked too much about this, but actually I did
It's
compose
about time,
the
I
whole
think.
thing. Yes, about time. actually, I actually did compose the whole thing as a kind of like an arrangement within the song, you know. But it's still a bit of a challenge to play because some of those figures are quite demanding. And
Yeah,
so, you know, when we were putting this together and this song came about and I knew there was going to be a drum solo on there, I thought to myself, you know, I want to play something, I want to put something together that's going to be something that I can be happy about rather than just to play anything, you know, because I knew that I was just getting like a one chorus thing. And so I sat down in a music school in Iceland and I actually orchestrated the whole thing, which is based on, is a record that I got from Japan. It was a Japanese release. It was a direct to disc record. I don't know the artist. I don't remember the artist, but Vinny Colaiuta was playing on it.
wow.
And he was playing all those flam figures, you know, you know, all these open flam kind of figures, and I loved that. And then I was deeply into the advanced funk studies with Rick Latham,
Yeah,
and I had played all of those solos, you know, from that book. And later I met Rick Latham. I met him a couple of times, and he's a great guy and very dedicated.
yeah,
And so this solo was kind of like a soup mixture of the influences from Vinny and from Rick Latham,
yeah.
you know,
Wow. Yeah,
apart from myself, you know, a little bit of myself.
absolutely.
So
Yeah,
so when the time came, when we were in London, I was playing those Black Power recording series drums with pinstripe heads, which I can see you have on your drums there.
let's go.
Yeah, I knew what I was going to play. You know,
Yeah,
I knew what I was going to play, and so it sounds good. You know, and I mean the song is great. I mean the song
yeah,
became a classic. You know, so
absolutely. Absolutely.
yeah.
Wow. Well, thanks for sharing that, Gulli. That's been on my mind for many years. You know
Mm.
how you put that together because it's a masterpiece.
Oh,
It's
thank you,
brilliant. Really, really.
thank you.
There's a guy here in the chat named Noah Christensen. He says he asked, did the success at such a young age ever get to your head and affect your playing?
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
oh yeah. I mean, uh, I don't know about the other guys, but I think it affected us in different ways. And you know, all of a sudden, we became like pop stars, you know, overnight
yeah,
almost, and filling up concert venues all over England and all over Europe and Japan, different places. So obviously, all this attention and all this travel and all this alcohol
oh yeah,
and parties, you know, they affect you, and you know, and you know, when I look back on it, I was very concerned about, you know, my hair and, you know, the, you know, blow drying hair and gel and uh, highlights and all the stuff. So it's like a, you become so sucked into it that you buy a red drum set because it looks cool. You try to look cool. You try to wear something that looks cool. So I was maybe a little bit too concerned about the way things looked, but it was a show, and I think when people buy tickets to see gigs, they want to have something to look at, and they want to enjoy the whatever it is on stage. We had smoke machines, pyros, massive lights, and 2 trucks with PA systems and lighting rigs, and a crew of 5, 6, 7 people. So it was all way too much, and too much money was spent, and too much time was spent on stupidity, rather than really focusing on music and your art as a musician. We were very focused on the fun part of things. So now today it's not like that anymore, because we kind of grown up and we've become much wiser, hopefully. And we are focused on the performance, and we're focused on the music, much more than the hair and and the clothing and the red jackets and drum set and light sticks and but there's always some fun part too. You gotta have some fun with it too, and play around and be playful. At the same time, when you're performing, you cannot take yourself so seriously that there's just no happiness, no joy. But we try to, and we've always tried to be a good band. I mean, we weren't always. We had periods where I don't think we were that good, and then there are other periods where everything is going great.
Yeah. But isn't that life? I mean,
yeah,
it's a natural thing. I think you've been together for over 40 years. You can't. I mean, there must be some ups and downs along the way.
Oh yeah.
I remember after I talked to you after a gig in Aarhus.
Yeah.
And you just came off stage, and we were talking a little bit, and you said something that struck me a little bit. You said that of course you have to play Garden Party every time, and you said to me that you think the band was playing Garden Party better in the old days than today.
I said that.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think there's some magic to the old version. I think there's some magic to that young energy, that excitement and enthusiasm. But I think it sounds good. It just sounds different, I think, today than it did all those years ago. But I mean, I always try to play it as well as I can, and I stick to the original arrangement to honor this piece of music.
Yeah, great.
Did you want to talk about Daybreak?
Yeah, I will. But before we do that,
Okay.
I have a question from a Danish drummer that you might know. It's a drummer called Morten Lund, who is a very good jazz drummer.
Yeah, very good. Great.
Yeah, very good. He says, when you hear yourself today on those classic albums, I think think about the albums from the 80s, what do you hear, and how have you developed as a drummer?
Well, that's a tricky question. I think the early albums that were done back in those days, they are very produced. They have a certain sound, and which was very much that time. I think, you know, I've started to get a much deeper understanding of music. You know, after all this time and all this playing and performing, recording, and working on my sound and trying to get it together, basically, I think I have a much deeper understanding about dynamics, sound, and listening. And I always say that the role of a drummer is to listen. You know, is to listen and to really understand the agreement between the band and between everybody on stage, and try to create that feeling that everyone gets excited about, you know.
Yeah.
So I would think, I mean, I wasn't thinking so much about my time and the groove and balance back in those days, you know, because it was more like just going for it.
Yeah.
Just playing your ass off. And now I have a better understanding of musicality and dynamics and groove, you know. And I'm always working on my groove, and it just never stops, you know. So I was just listening to earlier to the Rock With Me, Rock With You.
Yeah.
Michael Jackson was the bass and the drum track that is on YouTube with John Robinson and what is the bass player? And just you just listen to that and you think about what's going on there, you know. Let me see if I can just find it. Anyways, so to answer the question, I'm playing much more like an experienced musician, I think.
Yeah.
I'm playing more like, and to be honest, I'm never scared about playing or performing. You know, there's always this little nervousness before you go on stage, and you feel a little excited, you know. But when I sit down and I play, I'm very comfortable, and because I know, I mean, everybody's great, everybody plays so great.
Yeah.
And I can depend on my brothers to, you know, stay with me, and we're all together in this, you know.
Yeah.
So again, you know, it's really about understanding and try to improve as a musician, improve your technique, improve on your groove, improve on your sound, and try to play music, you know. And I always said that, you know, at the end of the day, you know, when people are sitting on the bus, you know, talking about this and that, or this groove, or this time, this arrangement, and whatever, you know, I just say, like, play the music.
Yeah.
Stop thinking too much and play the music, you know. Open your heart and really be a servant of the music. Stop thinking about yourself, you know.
Right.
And think
right.
about the magic of the flow and the dynamics, and be open, you know, to magical things happening.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah. Do you have a favorite album from all the albums you've done with Mezzoforte?
I mean, I like parts of them. I like parts of No Limits, because I think it's a really, really nice album.
Yeah.
I like a lot of stuff on Playing for Time, and I really like the Daybreak album, and I'll tell
Yeah.
you why. I'll tell you why.
Yeah. Yeah.
The Daybreak album was recorded in Puck Studio in Randes, close to Randes. And it sadly burned down, as we all know. But we were there a few times, and we were coming from an Asian tour, and we came to Denmark. We flew to Aarhus, and we stayed in Phuket for like 2.5 weeks. And the reason why I really like that album is, number one, there's some really, really good songs on that.
Yeah.
Really good song. And number two is that the four of us, we played live together in the studio.
Okay.
Yeah, so we were all in the same room with a big mixing desk and with headphones, so we could all make our own mix. And so it's just a click track, and we were able to really feed from each other, you know, and really play together as a band.
Wow.
And there's a guy called Peter Mark who engineered it, a great engineer, and it was recorded to a 32-track digital Sony machine or Mitsubishi or something, which was not that common those days. You know, it was a digital recording. And so I love that album because it's very live, and then we got people coming in and overdubbing and doing horns and percussion, and then most of us went home, and two of the guys stayed on, and they mixed the album with Peter Iversen, who was the main engineer in the place. So we loved being in Phuket. I mean, it was a beautiful time. There was a huge dog there, a house dog, a shepherd, and amazing food. And you know, the Danish were just great. You know, so we love Denmark. We love everything about Denmark. And I think the album was nice. It turned out really, really well. And it's really well arranged. And so we spent like 2 weeks together under the same roof, really bonding and trying out different things, a little bit of programming, and just sort of getting us trying to make this a great album, you know.
Yeah.
So
is that the only time you have recorded an album that way, where you sort of in the same room together?
No, it's not. But this time it was very definite, you know.
Yeah.
It was really like the brothers, you know, in the room.
Yeah.
And really sort of feeding off each other. And I think there's nothing like a bunch of great musicians in a live room, you know.
Right.
You know, because a lot of studio stuff is done like you do drums, and then the bass player does bass, and someone plays guitar and keyboards, and everybody's coming in at this separate time or sending files over the internet. Yeah. So I really like that album. I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah, wow, it is. It's an amazing album. I know you also spent some time in LA at the Musicians Institute, or PIT.
Mm-hmm.
Was that after Daybreak?
Yeah.
When you studied with the Porcaro father, Joe Porcaro.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, at the time, I was really feeling I was burned out, and I was losing my love for drums, you know. I felt like I was stagnated. I was stuck. Okay. I was stuck in my old way of thinking, old licks and that. And I thought to myself, I would love to go away and really refresh my vocabulary. And I knew about PIT, and so cut the long story short, I decided to go there for 3 months. We really dedicated practicing and studying with Ralph Humphrey, Joe Porcaro, and another guy called Joe Braccato. And Jeff Berlin was there. There was workshops. There was reading classes. There was advanced stuff going on. There was like brushes, you know. So I was able to really gather a lot of information in a relatively short time and practice and really enjoy the California climate. So, and actually I made some very good friends. There are many Danish friends that I met there, and I played with them a little bit, and we're still friends today. But what I found that going away to really try to learn something new was very, very useful, because I got some great teachers, and I really was challenging myself to play difficult things, and we were going through the new breed, Gary Chester book, and Gary Chafee stuff, brushes, big band stuff too, which was a new thing for me. So I got the chance to play with the school big band a couple of times, which was amazing. And I got to make some friends there. But to be honest with you, I think the lessons with Joe were very, very deep. They were really, really great, because you know he explained the use of rudiments so well, and really tried to open up those all those doubles and the singles and on the drum set. You know. So I think I cleaned up a lot of my thinking regarding how to approach the drum set and how to actually execute some of those figures, in a correct way.
Wow.
So it was great. It was great.
There's a question here in the chat from another Danish drummer named Lars Wagner, who's a great session guy. And he actually asked, how did you develop that amazing flow you have in your playing?
Thank you. You're very kind. I never thought of myself as being able to play a great groove or great flow, But only in the last 5 or 10 years, I really, really looked in the mirror and I said to myself, what I like to sound like, and what would I like to change? How would I like to improve as a player? And I asked myself one question. I said, if you look at some of the great drummers of our time, if you look at Gad, you look at Omar Hakim, you look at Roger Hawkins, Foo Fighters. If you look at Vinny, you look at Elvis Jones, and I said, why are these people so much better than everyone else? And it's like, why are they so incredible and the rest of us are not? And I found something that was really interesting. I felt that they're all moving in such a coordinated way, and they're all moving in such a correct manner and so musically and dynamic. And I thought to myself, okay, there's something there that I need to think about, So I thought, if I start to move my body in a way that I feel good about, if I start to coordinate those moves and really make them precise, and at the same time stay relaxed and stay dynamic, I thought to myself, if I change my moves, something could happen there, you know. So I started to think about how I'm moving up, an upstroke.
Yep.
So because before you play a downstroke, you know, you're always going up. You always start with the up.
Yeah.
So it goes up and down, up and down. And so I kind of started to experiment with this idea about playing relaxed and playing with those coordinated moves, and really try to focus on those patterns and these little things, you know, the little hi-hat figures and the little 5-stroke rolls and the balancing of the kit, and try to make it as musical as I can, you know.
Yeah.
And so that's the short answer to that. I really started to think about how I could improve my groove, my flow, and that's why the drumeo thing is called Finding the Flow.
Oh yeah,
because
sure.
it's about finding the flow. You play a paradiddle and it's like paradiddle, you know, so you go the up, 1 and 2, up, paradiddle, up. So I like, okay, think about every movement you make. Think about every backbeat, every cymbal touch, every 5-stroke roll, every 7-stroke roll, every double-stroke roll, and really focus on getting it to be smooth, you know.
Yeah.
And just play smooth and play balanced, and I realized that, this is what I would like to sound like, you know?
Right.
This is what I really love to develop as a drummer, and to really take myself into the deep ocean of music.
Yeah.
And really go deep and feel it, you know, feel the music, feel, even if you're just playing something simple like boom, pat, dum, gum, gat, boom, gat, dum, gum, gat, dum, gat, dum, gum, gat. Really monitor how you're feeling, and try to make it strong, and try to make it relaxed, and if you look at it, you know, it looks cool, or it looks stiff, you know. It's like you can't, if you're very stiff, you know, the music goes away, as I say.
Right.
If you're very stiff, you know, on any instrument, you know, if you're very stiff when you're playing and your shoulders are all tightened up and your breathing is not good, and you know, the music goes away, you know. It's like, so relax your body, you know, focus on your breath, and keep those hands moving up, and keep them moving in a relaxed way, but strong, you know. So that's the short answer for that.
Yeah, but that's something you also get into in the drumeo lesson that's up there.
Yeah, exactly.
Great.
You
Fantastic.
know, just to complete this little speech, you know, because when I got the invitation to go to drummer, which was through a Hungarian friend of mine, great drummer and great friend, Adam Marko, he actually recommended me to Jared and Dave at Drumeo, and to say, like, you have to get this guy, a friend of mine, you know, to come and do the show. And so they invited me over, and it was a big adventure. And I you know, Billy Cobham was before me, you know, in Drumeo.
Oh, wow.
You know, like, and I said to myself, you know, what am I going to do that hasn't been said already? Like, I'm not going to be playing some fast things or some chops or something like that, you know. So I I said to myself, I'm going to slow down, you know. So I'm
Yeah.
just going to slow down and start really moving and demonstrating something that everyone can relate to, you know.
Yeah.
So I don't have big ambitions and like chops, and I'm more ambitious about getting the music to feel as good as possibly can.
Right. Right.
Sometimes I can, sometimes I can't, you know, or it's difficult, or
Yeah.
just try your best, you know.
Yeah. Absolutely. How do you, I I've seen, almost every time I see you, you have a different setup. I can see you're experimenting with sometimes just one time, sometimes two,
Yeah,
and all
yeah.
giant cymbals. And
Mhm.
I get the feeling that you're sort of you're always on, looking for something new, or uh, trying to stay, interested.
Yeah. Well, I mean, my new things are not that new, but I mean, I started using like a second snare, this kind of piccolo 10-inch snare about, I don't know, it's probably about 20 years ago. And
Okay.
at the time, there was very, very few people, if anyone. I didn't know of anyone who was doing that at the time. I'm not saying I started it, but you know, I love the idea of having like one main snare and then having this one snare that is different. It can be really, really low snare, or it can be a really high snare. Then I started to mess around with these small China cymbals, and I Paiste, they custom made like 2002 little set for me. Uh, 3 cymbals, like 12, 10, and 8. Then at some point I had these 3 little chinas, and then another china on my left, far on my left, and then the 5th one was on my right. So I had like 2 big chinas
Ah.
each side, which is really, really fun. And then I had the little chinas here to create some new ideas and new sort of funky little sounds, and the little china, the baby chinas, they work really well with like a piccolo snare kind of thing. So I was just sort of having fun with that, and the one tom thing. What happens if you have just one tom? I think is that you start to feel a little differently about the groove. You know, because the right cymbal is in a perfect position, and you got just one tom, so you're sort of more focused on the whole drum set and just sort of keeping the time, keeping the groove. But when you need to play a fill or some part, that on the toms you got your 12, 14, 16, or 10,
Yeah.
14, 16. So I thought to myself, okay, that's enough to have like 3 toms. And
Yeah.
so I'm bouncing between the two, having 4 toms or 3 toms.
Yeah.
It's
Great.
just a feeling, I guess, I suppose.
Wow. Yeah. Great. Actually, there's a question here from a guy named Jan Nilsson. How is the general conditions for music and musicians in Iceland today compared to the 80s and 90s?
Uh, I think it's good. You know, there's a lot of really great musicians in this country. They're educated, they're creative, uh, they are really cool people, and they are experimenting with all these different styles and sounds and programming and jazz and all that stuff. And so I think the younger generation is very creative. It's more creative. They're more open to weird things, and they're more open to different music genres, and that, you know, but back in the days, I mean, there weren't that many musicians, you know. It was good for us because we got most of the gigs, you know. So it's the level of education has been really high. The level, the standard of musicians is really high, whether it's pop or jazz or classical. You know, it's the standard is very high.
Yeah.
So a lot of changes, a lot of good changes, and a lot of creativity, I would say.
Great, fantastic. There's another question actually. I have to scroll down a little bit. Let's see. There was a question from Nori Lentz, you know.
Nori, yeah.
And he actually asked me, but I think we lost the question here. But it was something about, have you ever been on a gig where you have been provided with the drums, where drum set that's been below standard, and how do you deal with that?
Nori is the chairman of the fan club, the Mezzoforte fan club. Great. He comes and sees us different parts of the world. Yeah, if you want to join the fan club, you can. It's called the Mezzoforte Travelers on Facebook.
Yeah.
Very good group of people. Great bunch of guys. Yeah, it has happened occasionally, but it's not common. It's very rare that it may happen if you go to really far away places like Asia or you know, really real far away places. It might happen, but usually I try to make the best out of it. Yeah. You know, if there's a drum set that is in really poor condition and heads and it's falling apart, I try to make friends with the crew, you know, the backline guys and the monitor guys, and said, hey man, you know, it's like we're in this little town. Could you help me? I need 2 more cymbal stands, or I need a new snare head, you know. And so actually I've sent out several times, I've sent out some of the crew to music shops to buy new heads, you know, just so I can make the gig. But as I said, it's very rare because everything is so professional these days. The backline companies are providing like really nice Yamaha kits and fresh heads, and everything's great.
Actually, there's another thing that's been on my mind a little bit, because every time I see you, you look younger and younger. How do you do that?
I knew this was going to come, this question. I knew it was going to come. I take care of myself really well. I do everything that to try to feel good in my body and in my soul and my mind. I learned yoga a long time ago, so I do that. I go to the gym. I work on my structure, my back, my abdominals, and my lower structure, my ass, my thighs, my calves. And I meditate, which relaxes my nervous system and it relaxes my head. And I'm very, very picky on the food that I eat. So I'm very into like salads and fruits and vegetables and nuts and seeds, avocados. We do have great fish over here, which is a blessing. So I enjoy great fish. But if I feel that I need to have some meat, I will have that. But only when my body tells me to, you know. But no bacon and no nothing like that. No, I just try to be very sensible with it, and I try to have a good life. You know, I enjoy my coffees and occasional glass of wine, and you know, but at the same time, I do a lot of exercise and I take care of myself. You know,
Yeah.
I try to keep my body in a way that I'm happy with it, and I feel good in my body. You know.
Wow, great. Yeah, absolutely. So beside of Mezzoforte, what have you have you been involved in other projects lately?
Uh, ooh, yeah, I just finished a really great project. It's an American singer, girlfriend of mine. She is a composer and singer-songwriter, um, and she writes this unbelievable music, which is like I don't know, it's like Enya on steroids, you know. It's
It's
like
what
this.
now?
It's like Enya,
Ah,
Enya on steroids, and this massive amount of voices and some great pieces of music. So I've been working on that for the last few months. Um, I've done like 3 solo albums. The last one came out in 2016,
oh
and
yeah,
two of them are on Spotify.
yeah.
That's like more like world kind of indie pop music, like someone said like the Alan Parsons Project or old Genesis or old Pink Floyd, you know. So it's very different from everything else that I've done.
But do
Um,
you have any new solo albums coming up, or are you planning to do more?
yeah, you know, I'm I'm I have a concept that is um, it's it's much like improvisation, and I'm trying to get my head around it, but I love playing the hang drum, or the Kaiser drum as mine is. And I want to start, I'm trying to put together some kind of like this sort of metallic world of manipulated sounds and grooves that is a mixture of playing metallic instruments with a bow
Hmm.
and different mallets,
Yeah.
and playing the hang drum with a lot of effects. So it sounds more like an orchestra rather than just a normal hang drum.
Oh,
So my brain is wanting to be more, go more into like improvisational world of things, you know,
yeah.
and even, you know, there was a guy that really inspired this way of thinking. That's Antonio Sanchez.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So if you want to check out Antonio Sanchez on Spotify or some of his YouTube stuff,
Yeah.
he did the music for Birdman,
Yeah.
and that's only drum set,
Yeah.
and he got a Grammy for it,
Hmm.
right?
Right.
And I thought like, wow, you know, and as I understand, his performances on the movie are all improvised. They're
Right.
improvised drum set playing,
Yeah.
and so that's where I am at the moment. I mean, I still love to play songs, and I love to play some of my drum stuff, some solo stuff, but I come to a point in my life where I would love to create something in the spirit of the moment. It's not jazz. I mean, I wouldn't call it jazz. You can call it whatever you want, but it's just like becoming a friend, your own friend. Becoming your own best friend, and then just think open and play something that is that's going to surprise you.
Right.
But I always loved percussion, and I play quite some percussion instruments, and I always loved that, and been a big part of my life.
Right. Yeah. Actually, we do have a very specific drum question here.
Yeah.
Is it electronic drums on Playing for Time? The track Playing for Time.
It's a mixture of electronic drums and some octapad or something like that, and D drums.
Yeah.
And live cymbals and live hi-hats, because we were really into electronic sounds at the time. So I recorded, I think there are two or three songs on that album which are absolute acoustic kit,
Yeah.
And then there are several songs where I was playing the D drum 2.
Yeah.
And that was live played, but we were messing around with, playing it into a sequencer, and then we were like fixing parts of it, and so it was just a mixture of electronic drums with live hi-hats and cymbals, and some samples.
Yeah. Yeah, great.
So, but every song has got a different sound almost.
Say that again. I think I lost you to that.
Yeah, it's almost like every song has a different sound.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Great stuff. I think we are almost, about to wind up the show a little bit.
Yeah.
When are you coming on the road again? I saw there's some shows coming up in Denmark in November that I really hope you will come back.
Yeah.
And do.
If everything goes to plan, we will be up and running September, October, November. And back to Denmark, back to Norway, back to Sweden.
Yeah. Great.
So it's been a long time of no live playing. So
yeah.
But I've been practicing.
Yeah.
I've been a good boy.
That's fantastic. That's absolutely fantastic. Well, Gulli, thank you so much for taking your time to talk to me and to share all the great stuff you've been sharing the last hour or more. It's been fantastic. It's always a pleasure. I'm looking forward to seeing you in Denmark again, hopefully soon. So yeah, take care. I'll just see if there's anything before we close up here. Yeah. Any favorite Mezzoforte song in the set list?
I love playing Daybreak.
Yeah.
I love it because it's very arranged. It's very playful. It's very colorful, and it's a great groove.
Yeah, very good groove. I mean, it's a great song. It's a great form.
Yeah.
in the song. It's actually a song that I use with a lot of my students, to
Yeah.
practice. The it's just great fun to play. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
Yeah.
probably one of my favorites. I love to play Evolution if we play that.
Yeah.
Um, I love to play Expressway. I
Oh
love to
yeah.
play Four Corners.
Yeah.
Um, so. But I also love to play some of the more quiet stuff.
Mm,
Uh,
yeah. Yeah.
uh, so yeah, it's always good fun, and there's no songs in the set list that are we are really kind of now we don't want to play that because we enjoy all of them.
Yeah. And there are many.
Yeah, it's good. It's a good set.
Wow. Fantastic. Well, thank you, Gulli. Hope to see you soon, and
Absolutely.
yeah, take care. I'll see you soon.
You too, man, and thank you for the good talk.
My pleasure.
All the best.
All right. All the best. Edo.
Ciao. Bye, everybody.